Okay. Here's an example of maintaining productivity. Post-attack cleanup diverts resources. So if we have 100 employees at an average salary of $25 an hour, and the number of employees to combat the attack, one employee, and it's going to take up to 48 hours to stop the attack and clean up. Just that one incident costs us $4,000. Okay, so just sitting on the firewall, looking at logs, checking the servers, cleaning stuff up, deleting files, doing antivirus removal, all of that stuff adds up, and it costs organizations lots and lots of money. So preventing it from occurring is, of course, going to be a higher priority instead of reacting. We want to be proactive instead of react, because it'll add up. It'll add up really fast. Cyber terrorism. How do we foil it? Well, we have some politically motivated attacks. That example of WikiLeaks I gave you. And then the what happened after they released all of the correspondence to all of the somebody help me out here. All the embassies. Yes. And then Anonymous attacked Visa, MasterCard, and so forth. Why? Because they are the ones that denied donations to the creator of WikiLeaks, because he published that information. So, I mean, those politically motivated ones we can kind of prevent by trying to, I don't know, I guess hide information of what's happening. But then there goes the open government, and so there's just it compiles and can cause more and more problems. So, yeah. Potential targets of cyber terrorism, banking. And a lot of times banks are attacked with denial of service. What is denial of service?
It's just basically just pinging them like crazy from thousands of computers, which causes it to crash.
Yeah, let's call it distributed denial of service. Yeah, where you give them so much traffic to their site that legitimate traffic is not allowed to visit it. So that's an example of a distributed denial of service.
Didn't they do that with Netflix or something? Not too long ago.
I think, Netflix was a target or has been a target.
One of the big ones was like Wells Fargo.
Yep. Military. It's funny, the FBI and the CIA website, it's constantly getting defaced. Anybody know what that means?
The people log in.
Yeah, so they hack the files. It's no security breach necessarily as far as information security of a U.S. government agency. But the web server, which probably doesn't even sit anywhere close to a CIA building, gets hacked into, and their website gets defaced, meaning they take the image that's on there and they pretend to spray paint on it, and they go, CIA has been hacked, right? And it's pretty much just defacing the website, not really causing any harm except just the trouble of them having to restore their files and put their website back and maybe fix the fault. Now, if the CIA used that same website to access their internal CIA records, then that would be a problem. And I highly doubt they do, because it is an obvious public, that's their public presence, and they're not going to link that to anything that's going to be secure. It's going to be some server completely far away in some other network that has nothing to do with the CIA. They just post some text and an image. That's about it. Yeah.
So there's no tab on it that says "click here for secrets."
Yeah. I don't think there might be. I don't know. I haven't been to the CIA website. If it's not CIA.com, it's going to be something .gov, right? Energy and power plants. What was that latest virus that its main target was Korean nuclear reactors?
Oh, stun, something like that.
You're
Stun
close.
Yeah.
The Stuxnet. That's it.
Yeah.
The Stuxnet.
Once I
The
start.
Stuxnet, and it actually came out accidentally that some U.S. government high-ranking officials actually did say, "Oh yeah, it's successful like the Stuxnet virus that we released." Ooh, did I just say that? So the U.S. government actually admitted to writing the Stuxnet virus that spread across the internet, and its potential target was to try to get onto the nuclear reactors that are used in Korea, to try to thwart the potential of them creating nuclear warheads. That's the ultimate goal.
They had a whole video on it. I can't remember what it was called, but they had a video on how newer viruses are designed to attack military installations and public power plants. Actually, it makes the systems work so fast that they overheat or fly apart.
They're basically just like shutting down the power grid on the internet.
Yep. Yeah, it's and these systems, if they're designed correctly, are completely separate from the internet. Power plants are not connected to the internet, people. Okay, they're completely separate. They're not connected.
Well, if I remember right, it gets into the computers that they've had connected to the internet, and then those computers are connected to software,
There you go.
and then
Yeah.
hardware that's like directly on the machines
Or-
themselves.
I take a CD that's infected with the virus, and I put it on the computer that's completely disconnected from the internet, and I run it, and now it's infected with the virus, and now it goes to town and does what it needs to do. And then attacks other computers that it is connected to. So even though it's completely separate from the internet, it's not like you see on TV or on the movies, where from the internet terminal, Internet Explorer, they can hack into a power grid and shut it down. Okay, it's not like that, but these are completely separate from the internet. And they are for this particular reason. But there are ways, like Stuxnet was designed to be able to jump from USB flash drive to flash drive and keep trying to infect these computers.
I read they said they think the flame virus was meant to attack Iran as targets.
Yeah. And these are being actively written by government agencies. Government agencies are writing these to infect our computers so they can make their way to the intended target. So our computers aren't the intended target, but they're getting infected with this and just sitting there dormant,
DARPA?
not doing anything. What's that?
Like DARPA? Would be the ones doing it?
I'm making a conspiracy theory here. Okay, I have no evidence and have done no research on these facts, but I'm just expressing an idea of what can and what has been thought has happened. Other conspiracy theories. So I have no evidence on the facts. So I'm not an expert on this. Yeah, traffic control centers. Something I read, whether it's true or not. The U.S. traffic control system is the oldest outdated system in all of the world.
Yep, I've read that too.
In fact, we are buying vacuum tubes from foreign countries that have replaced their traffic control systems in order to keep our air traffic control systems up and running.
Vacuum tubes, that's how old it is?
Yeah, some systems are that old. Now this I heard and I've told for probably at least 5 to 8 years ago. So this could be old news now, but it wasn't that long ago that our systems were still running on vacuum tubes.
That's crazy.
Take a trip to Lancaster Airport.
I had a TV that worked on a vacuum tube. It took forever for that thing to come up.
And even when you turn
We'd like to
turn it off,
land.
you'd still have
We'd
a
like to
light
land.
bulb
Just
still
hold
like-
on. This thing's taking a while to warm up.
All right, so who are the attackers? We have hackers, which are just people that are just curious. Curiosity. Can I do it? Example of a hacker that would do something illegal. Hack into, let's say, Rayovac's network. So they hack into Rayovac's network. They don't cause any damage. They don't break anything. They just take advantage of a vulnerability and exploit it. And they gain access. They prove they have access by printing something out or copying something or whatever. And they can either gloat on the internet saying, look, I hacked into Rayovac. I got in. I'm elite. or they share that information with the Rayovac network administrators, who can do one or two things. They can, one, say, thank you very much, we'll fix that hole. Please don't do this ever again. If you do, we will file charges. Or two, file charges and try to find the person who attacked you, and they get put in jail. So you can be a jerk about it, or they can be serious and take it and use that information to protect themselves. So, but that's just a person, they didn't want to cause any harm, they just had curiosity, like, oh, I'm bored. I'm not being, challenged enough in high school, so I'm going to use some of these scripts I found on the internet and hack away and see if I can get in. I can. Oh, look at that, I'm in. Okay, well, let's try the next thing. What else is there? Script kiddies. Using pretty much that. Using scripts that we find. We're going to be script kiddies, by the way. So you're all going to be classified as script kiddies. We're going to get scripts, we're going to use tools that have already been written by higher end, more knowledgeable people that write these scripts and publish them, and then we're going to take those and use them to take advantage of an exploit on a system that we create. So that's what script kiddies are. Using tools and scripts that have already been written by other professionals or other experts. Spies. The espionage, the writing the viruses to attack the Korean nuclear facilities. Yeah, those are real. They exist. Do we use technology? Yes, against other countries. Does China use, their resources to attack U.S. instances? Yes, they do. Google has evidence that hundreds and thousands of IP addresses from China have been trying to attack their Google accounts. Insiders. There's a lot of spy movies, right? It's the person inside that we trust that actually causes the problem. So I could be disgruntled and provide information out to a competing company. I think there was, I don't know the full story, so I'm not going to say it, but it was just pretty much insider stories. And you get a lot of those in movies and books and whatever you read, but it's true. Cyber criminals, just people that actually use the internet, use computers to try to gain profit from it. Sending out spam. They're a cyber criminal. They send out a spam message. If I send out 10,000 or a million spam messages and I get 1% of them to click on it, I make thousands of dollars on that. Okay? It's actually, sending spam is a crime now. Cyber terrorists. Actually trying to destroy certain aspects of information that we need or rely on, or to scare us or whatever. So different classifications. So for hackers, we had a couple different terms: white hat and black hat hackers. Okay, these terms are used. White hat is goal to expose security flaws. They don't want to steal anything. Black hat is to be malicious and destructive and destroy. So I've had websites that I host here in this room that are exposed to the internet that people have hacked into from wherever, and then they just use it as a place to store a bunch of files. So they didn't really cause too much damage, but my system was hacked and the resources have been used for other things that I didn't intend for them to be used. So are they white hat hackers? Are they black hat? I don't know. It's kind of in between. A gray hat. Who knows? So there's different classifications. Script kiddies. 40% of the attacks on the internet right now, that percentage I'm sure can be off a little bit because of the date of the book, but they're done by script kiddies. Just people that take advantage of what tools and resources they find in the internet, and they exploit what's out there. Spies, they're hired to do certain things. Those black hat hackers or white hat hackers could be hired by U.S. government or by companies to say, hey, I'll pay you money to go out and do this or that. That may be illegal, but you gain some money. So, spies. You could be a spy in your future. Make lots of money, right? Yep, you could be a spy, a computer spy, or you could be an assassin. There's a couple options for you.
Either way, I'm good.
Either way, that kind of scares me. I'd rather you steal my information than assassinate me. Alright, insiders, disgruntled employees, business partners, and such. Almost the majority of these breaches are done by insiders, because you already have access to the information, and they're giving it away because they're mad, or they'll get more money to give it away. The movie Office Space.
That's awesome.
That is an awesome movie. If you haven't seen Office Space, add it to your list of books and movies to watch. Office Space is good just because it gives the idea of what an insider is. These guys work there, they're trusted employees, but they're kind of upset just because all the crap they have to deal with. They write a piece of software that takes a small, like even a quarter cent off of each transaction. It just rounds it down. So they take the other quarter cent and deposit it into another account. Well, there's so many transactions that go through that adds up really super fast, and they freak out, and it's funny. And then they kill a printer. So
I remember
But stapler was safe.
the stapler, the red
Swing line
my stapler. Right. I'm gonna have to ask you to take a look at this slide. Yes. So who are cyber criminals? Well, they have different motivations to steal identity and such, spammers, stealing credit cards and so forth. Some cyber criminals will go to the point where they steal a bunch of credit cards, but they don't use them. They sell them to the highest bidder on different hacking forums and so forth for other people to use. So, or they steal a whole identity and go, here you go, here's Joe Smith, he wants to be Joe Smith. Sell it, $100 right here. Okay, because they don't maybe, the part of stealing those credit cards, you are less apt to be caught than you would if you were to use one of those credit cards. You'd be more apt to get caught.
I went to New York, and people would just like walk up on the street and they'd be like, give me your ID, I'll give you money. You said, give me your ID, and we'd be like, I don't think so.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's not good. Don't give your ID away.
I was like,
Who knows what they're gonna do with it, right? Do you really want to be me?
Yeah, really. Look at this. This is what I'm working
a train wreck.
All this we kind of talked about. To protect your computer against attacks, we follow this 5 fundamental security policies, and here they are. So, if somebody is going to attack, the first thing they have to do is what's called reconnaissance. We are going to start probing and gathering as much information as possible. Like I did that packet capture, and all we did is a simple web browsing to a website. We now know exactly what operating system they're running, what web server software they're running, what version of web server software they're running. Well, that information now I can use to try to circumvent their security they have in place, or find a vulnerability for that particular type of software that they're running. Then I'm going to launch the attack. So I've identified what I'm going to exploit, because I found there's these vulnerabilities with that older software. So I'm going to launch the actual attack. And then I'm going to modify their security settings so I can either, one, I can come back again later, or I can create an account so it looks like it's a legitimate access. So in the audit trail, it looks like, oh, Joe Smith logged in. Wait a minute, do we have a Joe Smith that works here? But in just the normal logs, you're looking, it's like, oh yeah, Joe Smith accessed, okay, good, this is all good. Sally accessed, and Mary, and everyone else. So there's those things you have to take into consideration. So even though your server or firewall reboot, and you go, what's going on? It just reboot. Everything seems fine. Okay, well, let's just carry on. But what happened is they had to force your system to reboot in order to take advantage of an exploit, and now they plug in a back door, or they create an account that looks legitimate, and to me it just looked like, oh, that was weird, a reboot, maybe a memory flaw, and then I ignore it from here on out, and now they have a back door, they come in and go as they want. So that's where they modify your security settings, or erase the log files. So your AAA, your authentication access, and that gets compromised, gone. Your logs are erased. So if I have on my computer, and on all these computers, even Windows or Mac, you have a log, a security log, the event viewers, right? You can set it up so that those events, certain ones, get written to a separate system somewhere else. So in case this does become compromised, then we have a log of what happened and who and when. So we know at what time the data is not valid or not authentic. So when we implement security, we want to keep that in mind, where we don't want to just keep the logs all local. Maybe we should write those off to some other remote location. So if it does get compromised, we still have a copy of it somewhere. And a really good person or a really good hacker would probably attack that device and then go find the place where all the audit logs are and attack that one too, right? And destroy it or erase the logs. So then another option of an attack is to circulate to other systems. So in other words, use the tools that you've gained from this one system to access other system. And then they can either paralyze your network or stop it from working. A lot of options available depending upon what is their motivation for the attack. So here, number 1, we probe for information. Number 2, penetrate the defenses. 3, modify security settings. 4, circulate to other systems. And now we don't have access to our server. So everything is gone. So how do we defend against these attacks? As I mentioned with the example of the castle, we use layers. We create layers of security. The more layers of security we have, we lose what though? Accessibility. Yes. Right? The harder it is to gain access to the information we need. Like it's hard to go see the king, right? And there's the reason for that. So layering, multiple layers of security. Limiting. I have it set up so I can access my firewall from my home. But what I did is, instead of saying allow anyone to access my firewall, you need to have a username and password in order to get through my firewall. Makes sense, right? But you have to have that username and password. Well, instead of a rule that says, go ahead and allow anyone from the internet, from any IP address on the internet, to gain access to my firewall, if they have the username and password, I said, narrow down the scope of who can access the firewall to just the Charter Communications Internet Service Provider IP addresses. Because that's who my ISP is. So, of course, if I'm in Arkansas at the in-laws, I'm not going to be able to remote into my classroom here through my firewall. I'm going to have to be at my house or at another person that has Charter Communications for their internet service provider. So what I'm doing is I'm narrowing the scope of attack down. So somebody from China can't try a combination of usernames and passwords to get into my firewall. They have to come from my ISP. So the likelihood of somebody attacking me from Charter Communications ISP network range is a lot smaller than the whole world, right? So that's an idea of limiting, is just trying to narrow down who can gain access to what information.
Then there are exceptions where you can add specific.
I can add more exceptions like time of day. They go Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'm physically here. So let's not allow access then. And I'll never be remotely accessing my network after, say, 1 a.m. until 5 a.m. So you narrow that scope down by time. So you narrow things down as much as you can.
MAC address filtering.
What's that?
MAC address filtering too.
Yeah, you can do MAC address filtering on the internet. That won't work, but that's one method on.
Set client list.
Yeah, like a set client list. You can use MAC addresses, the hardware addresses. Yep. So that kind of leads to the next one: diversity. Having multiple things in place to safeguard your data. So, in other words, don't have an entire Microsoft everything security. I'm trying to give you a better example than that. So, for example, don't store all your files on SkyDrive, and then have a Microsoft operating system that's connected to SkyDrive, and having a Microsoft mouse and a Microsoft keyboard and a Microsoft. I don't know if they don't make hardware, but so gosh, I'm trying to give a better example. I can't. They'll have better examples, I'm sure, in the book on this, but I can't think of any right now off the top of my head on diversity. There's next couple slides. We'll cover little details in this. Obscurity, keeping it obscure, and simplicity. So layering, we talked about this in detail. Limiting, reducing the threat by using technology, using file permissions on folders, not just giving everybody read access. Limit who can read those files and who can change them. Here's some examples of diversity. Whoops. Closely related to layering, so using different types of techniques. Breaching one security layer does not compromise the whole system. So in other words, I guess what I'm saying is, if you could pass a Windows NT password manager, that password manager is also going to store your saved password for SkyDrive. Because it's built in, it's all a Microsoft product, and Microsoft SkyDrive says, hey, why not just use our already existing password manager to store that password? Use a different separate system like LastPass to store the password for SkyDrive and not have Windows remember it. Because if Windows remembers it, then it's going to be compromised if you compromise the Windows password manager. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah,
So it'd
Wesley.
be like, if your outer wall has a weakness in the left corner, then the next wall in, you don't want a weakness in the left corner, you want it somewhere else, like in the right side or something.
Yes, you just gave me an idea. So if here's our intranet, and we go in through this router, and then we have to go into another router to get access to our private network. If this first firewall is a Cisco firewall, and this next firewall is also a Cisco firewall, and they find a vulnerability on this firewall because I haven't patched it yet because it's an older version, guess what? If I haven't patched this firewall, more than likely I haven't patched this one, right? So if they can get through in this one, then they're going to get through on this one. Another set of diversity is I have a username and password on this that they guessed or cracked. Am I using the same username and password on this device? More likely, for the sake of just keeping things simple for me, I might. But keeping the diversity, I want to use a different username and password on this system. Do you see how diversity works? So try to change it up, I guess, is the name of the game. Obscurity, not revealing details. So the example of me being able to do that packet capture when I visited a website, the podcast at SVTC, I knew Ubuntu, Apache, right? And it even said Apache version 2.2.0, right? You can configure Apache. It's a simple line of configuration that says, what version of Apache are you? And you can say, instead of it saying Apache and then the version variable, you can have it say Apache version or any. So that way the information handed out is just Apache, not the version number, but just Apache.
So could you put Apache? None of your business.
Exactly, yeah. Nunya. You can put Nunya in there.
Put a false version on there?
You can, what's that?
False version?
Yeah, you could just put a false version or x.x. Or yeah, you can change what information is handed out. Keep it obscure. Just like when you're in your browser, you can actually put a plugin into your Firefox or Chrome for anonymous browsing. It will not give away your browser information. So in those browser stats, there's always that 2 or 3 or 4% that are just other.
Yeah.
It's those that don't report.
And will that prevent like all the local ads and all that, or pop-ups coming up?
Yeah, it will. Well, it can also hurt you. Because I browse to a website like TeamViewer, and it displays the link, download TeamViewer for Mac, because it knows that I'm running my browser on a Mac.
If you're in private viewing,
But on private viewing, I'm going to have both options showing there, or I'm going to have to click another link, and it just adds another layer of another step for me to accomplish what I want to accomplish. So again, there's the balancing act. Travis, you were going to say something?
I was saying like the IP address, the local ads go off your IP address. That's how like they say
Yeah.
people are near you and they say your location or whatever.
Yeah. So, yeah, like the whole singles thing, right? You see those ads for all those Match.coms or whatever on the sidebars, those things that show up, and they say, oh, find other people in like Sun Prairie. Like, wait a minute, I live in Spring Green. I don't live in Sun Prairie. But Sun Prairie is where the IP address is registered with ARIN, ARIN.net. Remember I showed that to you in IT Concepts? Okay. So yeah, that's how they do that. But you can't hide your IP. You got to have your IP so they can get back to you. Simplicity. The more complex your system is, the more security you implement, the more things that you have to keep updated and keep patched and monitor. So, again, it becomes a balancing act. It just all comes back to a balancing act. Summary. Whew, that's all of chapter 1. Information security attacks growing exponentially. So we know it's a problem, it's an issue. We need to do something about it.
It'll always be a problem.
What's that?
It'll always be.
There's always. There's never gonna be a day where we go, yay, we don't have to worry about security anymore. It's always gonna be an issue.
maybe you'll have to give a hair sample and a retina scan and a stool sample and a blood sample to get into your
Stool sample?
Well, you never know. They might want to make sure your poop is who you say.
Oh, what was that? What was that one movie where it actually they go and he uses the bathroom and it actually analyzed?
Oh, Galactica?
Galactica,
and that's
yeah.
the same one.
where he wants to go in outer space and be on a mission, but he has bad genes, so he uses this brother who got paralyzed, and yep, that was a good one. Yeah, Galactica. Yeah, so well that kind of defeats some purpose on usability, but yeah, there might be a time like that. But even still, we still have to implement those systems and maintain them, right? A perfect example and something that is becoming an issue is chips, firmware. The microprocessor chips that are being processed have backdoors in them or code that actually sends information back to the mothership. So these devices that are getting manufactured in China or other foreign countries are coming here to the US and being installed into our networks here. And then they are then reporting home. The same concept in the one of the books, Freedom Book, is if you possessed this gem or something that
there's a router, and the router was built in China and actually.
No, it's the security camera ones I was talking about.
Oh, the security one.
The security cameras were manufactured by this company that if you possessed or had this gem that created a reflection, it would essentially block your image. So you would never show up on the image, on the camera image.
Oh, yeah.
So if you walked around with this gem, which was just a ring, and it was in camera view, then all they could see is the people standing around you. You were transparent to the camera. And it was software built into the camera. This is fiction, but realistic fiction where they do have technology that they're using like this. Is it as simple as a ring? No, but it is the concept, right? It's like Harry Potter's cloak, right? Concept. So you won't be picked up on cameras, on security cameras. So it's yeah. So we want to protect your information. We want to prevent data theft, identity theft, legal consequences if something is stolen or accessed. We have the acts and the different laws that we need to take into consideration and make sure that we are going through the steps. For example, a bank that I did work for, I was hired to do just that: write up policies, write up procedures, identify the mechanisms that were in place, and document that we are doing these things in order for the FDIC to insure them. So we had to prove all of these things, and an auditor came in and did a bunch of things and scanned, and they identified, well, you need to fix this, you need to fix that, and we fixed it and changed those settings, and then we were compliant to the law.
So it's like the OSHA of the computer world.
Yeah, kind of like the OSHA, the computer world. There's several laws that apply depending on the industry that you're in. Even laws that identify the FCC requires that telecommunication industries hang on to their records for 5 years. So it's your responsibility as an IT person to ensure that your backups are kept for 5 years and they're still good and readable after 5 years. Not just paper records, but data records as well.